Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to another Godzilla watch along. And we are back to real Godzilla movies. Yeah, because last week was Godzilla 2000. No, that's today. I'm sorry. Last week was Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, but it feels like it's been a long time since we actually did a Godzilla movie, like a legit Godzilla movie. And yeah, not much else to say. This movie came out in August, or it came out in December 1999 Japan, but it came out in August of 2000. So we're like just a few weeks off from the 20th anniversary of the American release of this film, which is kind of interesting. And with that being said, we are going to be doing the American version. I debated on, like, normally I'd like to do the Japanese version of the Godzilla movies. Like, I did it for King Kong versus Godzilla. I did it for the original Godzilla, the Return of Godzilla. But with Godzilla 2000, I'm making an exception because, for one, it's easier to access the American version in the United States because because it's the version you can rent digitally, whereas the Japanese version, you have to have the Sony Blu-ray in order to see it, or unless you go online to find it somewhere. But also the reason I'm doing the American version is because this is actually the superior version of the movie. And even Toho considers this to be the superior version of Godzilla 2000. So, yeah, we're going to be doing it. I think I might end up doing a Patreon exclusive watch along of the Japanese version. But again, I'm going to try to get up to... I need to reach 25 patrons before I start doing live watch-alongs, because right now I only have 3 patrons, and that's not much of an audience to do watch-along with. So for now, until I start doing exclusive watch-alongs for patrons, we are going to be doing the American version of Godzilla 2000. So for those of you who are watching this in post, if you have the DVD, the Blu-ray, or then you're good, or you can rent the movie digitally, because I'm pretty sure that you can't rent the Japanese version digitally, just the American version. But yeah, this movie I have some nostalgia for. It's a more middle-of-the-road Godzilla movie, but it's pretty fun. So before we get into it, I want to welcome everyone who is in the chat at the moment. Welcome. I redesigned my streaming background, or just setup altogether, because I kind of got tired of just showing like a black background with myself and a photo in the corner. So I just decided to spice things up, put the logo of my show at the top, links to my social media at the bottom, and then the title of the movie on the side, and the photo just right down there. So yeah, without any further ado, that's the way you phrase it, I'm going to hit the play button, and we are just going to start this movie right now. There's that horse. And luckily, it's not followed by disappointment. Or maybe, it depends how you feel about this movie, but I'll say it's not followed by heartbreak, because the next thing it follows is the Toho logo. Yeah, this is a very strange movie in the history of Godzilla, just because it came out in... Well, that's a weird way to frame the logos. But this is a strange movie because um, when it came out, I'm sure people were kind of confused on what this was. Because Toho had no intention of making more Godzilla movies after Godzilla vs. Destroya, at least until 2005. But because the Roland Emmerich movie was so despised, they just got back on it. Like, pre-production for this movie, or development, started literally 2 months after the release of the Roland Emmerich movie. Yeah. And then they started filming, and it got released in December of 1999. Man, they really, like, the photographer. They in this American version, they really drag her character in the dirt, and they don't really make fun of her as much in the Japanese version. But yeah, the reason, like, I say people were confused by this one is because when you look at the film's title, and considering that Roland Emmerich's movie came out just years before, you're like, so is this going with the trend of the year 2000 and people calling the movie, their sequels or movies, have the subtitle? So is this part of that trend of movies where it's like blank blank 2000, like Fantasia 2000 or Dracula 2000, where this is a sequel to Roland Emmerich's movie? Because I imagine people were confused on what this was. And plus, like, that's the general public. And then in terms of Godzilla fans, like, we were happy to just get this movie so quickly after Roland Emmerich's film. That is a great... Like, it's his eye, but that's a great reveal right there. That's... There's something about that American logo that's so cheesy, but yet so iconic for Godzilla, or at least this movie. So in the Japanese version, like, there's some shots that are rearranged. Right after the title card, we cut to... wait for it. Right after the film's title card, we cut to... wait for it. This shot here, where the Godzilla Prediction Network van's driving off. And then it cuts to the lighthouse keeper running outside and the boat falling on top of him. Yeah, they waste this movie. Like, this movie, every decision made in this movie is everything that's a direct response to the Roland Emmerich movie. Like, they waste no time at showing Godzilla right away. Like, even though he's shrouded in mystery, they waste no time showing how destructive he can be. Like, intentionally destructive, not accidentally destructive. But anyway, getting back to why I feel like people would think this movie was confusing when it came out, is because, like I said before, for fans, we were just happy that this movie exists. But in terms of, like, the timeline, we were like, so is this a sequel to Godzilla vs. Destroya? Is the Godzilla in this movie Junior? Which... that's always been a common fan theory, that Junior turned into the Godzilla in this movie. Yeah? And for the longest time, I'd always thought that as well. But turns out, like, later on, it was just revealed that this is just another reboot, and that we assume that it's a follow up to the 1954 film, because I think it was when this movie was coming out in Japan, Toho's site listed this Godzilla as the second of its kind. Yeah, you see that head right there. And every fan is just sighing with relief. Like, yep, that's Godzilla right there. This is a tense scene. I get it. Like, if I were in these the shoes of these characters, like I would be, my heart would be pounding like constantly, like a million miles a minute. That would have been, they would have been dead. Like if they had not reacted so quickly. Yeah, Roland Emmerich's Zilla tried to go into the hole. Like when the taxi cab went to that tunnel, Park Avenue tunnel, Zilla tried to claw it out with his hands and tried to stick his head inside the tunnel. But Godzilla just stomps on the surface, and his foot goes right through. Granted, Godzilla doesn't. Granted, Godzilla fails to kill these characters, but at the very least, he made more of an effort than Zilla did. DeQuan Tate says Godzilla films in the Millennium series feel like live action anime to me. Oh, the last two definitely, Tokyo SOS and Final Wars. But these first, and maybe Megaguirus as well. But this movie and GMK, uh, and yeah, this movie and GMK don't feel like an anime to me, especially GMK. This design is really cool. I mean, like, it's, again, going back to every decision in this movie seems like a response to the Roland Emmerich movie. That's a cool shot there where, like, Godzilla's composited into the background. So it really feels like he's stomping through an actual city. But this design is just like, it's how you redesign Godzilla while not straying too far from what his characteristics are. Like the spines are different. He's green this time, but it's still like you look at that. It's like if you were to take that image of Godzilla and just show it to somebody who's not familiar with the series, they would instantly tell you it's Godzilla. And the suit actor in this movie and throughout all the Millennium series except for GMK is Tsutomu Kitagawa. I definitely think he's a good Godzilla actor. For the longest time, I'd always thought that the photographer was his wife. I didn't think that she was just a random photographer that was assigned to take pictures of Godzilla with no relation. Did anyone else, when they saw this movie for the first time, think that these two characters were husband and wife? There's a lot of compositing shots in this movie. More than like the entirety of the Heisei series. Some of them are pretty cool, but a lot of the others just do not. Some of them come across as pretty fake. Like there's going to be some really terrible ones later on in this movie. The roar is it's not different, but I like how they kind of like once again updated it to sound a little more modern, and it's a pretty intimidating roar. All right, so I had, like when it came to me seeing this movie for the first time, like I was 9 years old when this movie came out in America, and I remember seeing it with a bunch of friends from school who had actually encouraged me to see the Roland Emmerich Godzilla, and like I can't remember what they thought about the movie. I think they might have liked it, but I was certainly the most enthusiastic because by this point I had seen more than half of the series at the time. So I was just like hyped to see a Godzilla movie on the big screen. Prior to this, I saw Son of Godzilla at the Egyptian Theater here in Hollywood. But this was the first time I got to see a real Godzilla movie in the theaters as my first viewing experience. And yeah, I loved it. I mean, looking back, it's more of a middle of the road Godzilla movie, but I don't think it's bad. These negatives are as blank as your mind. That is not what that's not what he says in the Japanese version. So again, in this version, yeah, so in this version, again, the photographer is just dragged through the mud. And we'll get some more scenes later on with that. Spider's Prime. I want pictures of Godzilla. All right. So this music right here, yeah, this music right here is not part of the original American, no, the original Japanese version. So right after that sequence, we see the photographer walking through like a refinery area just to get to their headquarters. And I kind of wish that they'd kept that moment in. It slows the pacing of the movie down, but it's interesting to see that these two operate this independent Godzilla network in some like factory area. Meanwhile, at the Crisis Control Intelligence HQ, Gzilla 100 says it's certainly better paced than 1998. Oh, this movie's not only that, it's one of the reasons why this version of the movie is considered better than the Japanese version is because of the pacing. Like, the Japanese version is worse in the sense... There are a couple reasons why the Japanese version's worse. Wow, that's an obvious, like, digital oceanscape. Wait. The reason the Japanese version's considered to be worse is because of the pacing. Like, there's too many shots in this movie that are not only unnecessary, but they drag for a little too long. Like, there are some shots where you could easily trim a few seconds off, which is what this version of the movie does. And also, the sound effects for the American version are beefed up a lot more, just to make the movie feel more alive. And again, the music, like the original score for this film is done by the same composer that did Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. Let me pull up his name. Takayuki Hattori. Yeah, Takayuki Hattori. And what I like is that the new score that they put in this movie is done by J. Peter Robinson. No relation at all. And it's like, it's not a score from another movie. It was done specifically for this version of the film, but it also complements the original score by Takayuki Hattori. So that's something... One of my biggest issues with a lot of the other American versions, especially with King Kong versus Godzilla, is how they completely do away with Ifukube's score. And here they made a score that complements, that, as it said, supplements the original score, and they keep a lot of the film's original themes. So that's good. So is this guy just working in an aquarium? Yeah, this music here is just ridiculous, and it's not part of the original film. Again, they throw her under the bus in this version. Okay, now about the alien of the movie. Like, I really suffered, like, thinking back on this movie when it was coming out. Like, I really suffered from a Mandela effect. Where, like, I remember seeing the trailer for this film, which is probably the most gratuitous early 2000s trailer next to Jason X. But for some reason, seeing that trailer, I had completely blocked out the shots involving the UFO. Like, I was just like, I think because of the trailer, I was just like, oh, it's Godzilla doing things. Sure, I'm in. Yeah, somebody mentioned that Katagiri is the film's bad guy. Not really. I mean, he's just really he's just doing his job, and once Godzilla kind of disappears from a good chunk of this movie, he's dedicated to stopping the UFO. And also he's just doing his job to try to defend the country. Man, Katagiri is just so smooth. Like, he's such a cool guy. Wow. Our flow says he's definitely antagonistic for Godzilla. He is, but Godzilla's not really a hero in this movie. He's just the lesser of two evils in this one, because oh wow, Razorbike says the Tokai nuclear power plant would actually suffer from a nuclear accident a few months before the film came out in Japan. That's pretty ironic. So, like, the music playing right now is the score for the American version. And as the alien UFO is just, like, tilting upward, that was from the original Japanese version. So, It doesn't feel like two completely different scores clashing with the tone, but you could definitely tell which score came from J. Peter Robinson and which score came from Takayuki Hattori. Daquan Tate says, have you seen that old Godzilla commercial where he plays basketball? Wait, the one where he fights Charles Barkley? Yes, I have. And it's a damn shame that, like, that animatronic Godzilla that was created, I think by ILM, there would never be a Godzilla animatronic as articulate. Oh, I love this line. I absolutely love this line because it's so corny and so terrible. I guarantee it will go through Godzilla like crap through a goose. Like, I remember, like, laughing at that line when I first heard it. Yeah, that shot there where the mines go off, um, where the mine first goes off and Yuki, um, like, reacts to it. That shot goes for like a few seconds longer, and it's just a shot of the actress awkwardly looking past the camera. It's weird that, like, throughout Godzilla's history before this movie came out, like the 45 years in between the first movie and this, Godzilla has been imagined as green, but in actuality, he was just charcoal gray. And this is the first movie where he's actually green. Not as many helicopters as in Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, and they're not cluttered all over the place. So yeah, this was a shot. This shot of Godzilla walking on towards the beach where he's green screened in. Like, I thought it looked cool. It looked cool when this movie first came out, but like it's a shot that doesn't really hold up that well. Because this movie utilizes a lot of compositing shots, more than just as many compositing shots as it does miniatures. And I don't think it entirely works. Like, there's some shots where it works, others where it doesn't. Oh yeah, DeQuantate. I remember that Snickers commercial for Godzilla as well. Like that commercial came out when the Gareth Edwards movie was about to get released. Okay, somebody mentioned that John Cho actually did a voice in this movie. I don't think that's true. I'm gonna. Oh no, it is. Okay, never mind. Well, those missiles didn't go through Godzilla like crap through a goose, but definitely took some. It definitely was enough to damage him more than usual. And yeah, went to John Cho's IMDb, and yeah, it says Godzilla 2000 voice. Doesn't list what role he plays, but huh. So that's another actor that played Sulu, who did a voice in an American version of a Godzilla movie before being Sulu on Star Trek. Because for those of you that don't know, George Takei did dub work for Rodan and Godzilla Raids Again. Yeah, one thing, like, out of all the beefed up sound effects that this version of the movie does, I'm honestly not a huge fan of inserting that generic UFO sound effect for the UFO. Yeah, it's like there are pieces of uh that suit that are flying off. And there's a shot in the Japanese version where Godzilla's about to charge his atomic breath. See, right in that shot there, his spines are glowing. But there's some additional shots where we see him charging the atomic breath. But he never uses it up until the UFO. But yeah, I didn't know that John Cho did a voice in this movie. Which is one thing I actually note about the dub in this movie. Unlike a lot of the other Godzilla dubs that we got, where it was just dubbed over by a bunch of people in Hong Kong for little to no pay. The dub work was actually done in the United States, and the producer for this version, Michael Schlesinger, wanted to get Asian American actors to do the voices, like specifically Asian American actors, which I think is pretty cool. So you just don't have a bunch of basic white guys voicing these characters. Here's a concept that I wish, like, I don't think this has ever been addressed in any of the other movies prior to Godzilla 2000. Like the concept of why Godzilla is so invincible, which again could have been just another response to the Roland Emmerich movie, since that Godzilla was incredibly weak. But yeah, this movie, the series has never like tried to answer why Godzilla is so indestructible until now. I love how with the Millennium Godzillas, like rather than just instantly firing their atomic breath, they charge the breath. Like they charge their atomic breath and it like kind of builds up to a big, oh shit, here it comes. So in the Japanese version, those guys on the train, uh, they cut out a third guy saying, "I thought we were going fishing or scuba diving." And then another guy says, "I thought we were going bug catching." And then the third guy says, "I don't know what you guys were doing." So definitely, again, another instance where they completely changed the dialogue and trimmed the scene. See, now that's a footprint. It's not as deep as it's not like as deep into the ground as Zilla's footprint was in Roland Emmerich's movie, but it's definitely a bigger footprint in terms of its size. Now, is that looks like a helicopter shot where like they photographed that area and then just inserted the UFO there? Huh. Now I forget if that line is in the original version. Yeah, that's that line. Like unbelievable. Yeah, like Godzilla's normal. That's funny. Wait, wasn't it nighttime? I guess the UFOs. It's been a. This movie doesn't really. It's not that memorable outside of few scenes. So I think I must have forgotten that the UFO's inactive for a good while. Well, Godzilla's atomic breath is permanently orange in this movie and the next one. Yeah, something you would never say in this day and age. It should be noted that like if you see pictures of Godzilla in this movie and they look drastically different from the suit, that the pictures of Godzilla seen in this movie were actually his original design here. Summer homework, that's a bummer. But yeah, the like if you've ever seen the 50th anniversary logo of the franchise, uh the that look of Godzilla was the original suit, but I think something didn't work out with that suit, so we ended up getting the suit that we got for this movie and the next one, which I think looks infinitely cooler. But yeah, this is where we get the big information on. But I mean, in a sense, we probably didn't need an explanation to why Godzilla is invincible, because we could have come to the conclusion that it was just because he was radiated, irradiate. Yeah, that he was just it's just part of the radiation. But the fact that we have a movie that tries to go into depth about that little thing is pretty cool. Like, it's a nice way to delve more into the science of Godzilla, as much as it can be. Kind of a goofy name, but in the Japanese version, it's called Organizer G1. Yoink. So basically, it's a solar-powered UFO. Okay, at the very least, these aliens are eco-friendly. And there goes the... Yeah, the cables might be unbreakable, but the bridge ain't. Wow. Even in even in 2000, that wasn't good. Or I guess 1999. I would say, like, the another bummer about this movie is that the villains are not really, like, the UFO's just not really established that much. Like, is it is the UFO the alien? Are there aliens inside that? Is like an artificial intelligence thing going on with that UFO? Like, it's not. I mean, with the dialogue, you probably assume that it is, like, sentient. It's a sentient UFO. Well, so much for it being friendly. Now, there's one point in this movie where a character says Great Caesar's ghost. Like, where does that come in? Unless I just missed where the character says Great Caesar's ghost. Oh, there it is! Wow, perfect timing. I asked that question and boom, there it is. Great Caesar's ghost. You know, um, what was I gonna say? Like, she really is an imbecile to think that she could get good pictures from inside the building that the UFO landed on when you get better pictures if you go outside. Yes, because those rifles are going to do so much good. that's a... Ooh, Lord. That's an effect that does not hold up. Like, it must be the way, like, this Blu-ray's transferred, because, yeah, that shot of Godzilla underwater swimming is... Ooh, that's ugly. And again, I think, like, the Japanese version on the Blu-ray that I have, that shot is much darker, so it doesn't look as terrible, but even then, oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I wish there was more... I wish there was more of a development in knowing more about the aliens and what they want. Or, like, even knowing if there are aliens in the movie. No, this movie's not making fun of Independence Day. It is making fun of Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, but not Independence Day. And plus, like, the UFO being on top of that building doesn't really scream Independence Day. Like, it's just sitting there sleeping, pretty much. Sleeping and hacking computers. I love it when movies have these computers that are just so high tech that they can predict what happens in such great detail. I'm not going to say you are, but you certainly didn't help. You know, she didn't really say that she was inside the tower. This dub loves to use that word so often. Yuki is the photographer. Yuji Shinoda is the father. Just putting that, just letting you know that, Sean Clifford. Oh, they were just in a restaurant. Should probably check that. They should probably check for any homeless people that have raided that restaurant. Screw that cone. Okay, that's why I was confused for so long that... That's why I was confused for so long, thinking the photographer was the mother, or was Shinoda's wife, because of that line. There's that rooftop that our characters will be standing on once the big monster battle takes place. $21.10, so that would be 9:10 p.m. All right, if everyone's asking, just so you guys have an idea of where we are, I am at the hour and 2 minute mark. Or more specifically, it'd probably be better to skip to the 1 hour and 3 minute mark. Razorbike says, this is the first Godzilla movie to be produced without Tomoyuki Tanaka. Yeah, he died 2 years after Destroya and 2 years before this one came out. You know, thanks to Shin Godzilla, that would never fly. Like, Katagiri is just such a scumbag, but at the same time, he's just so cool. Um, yeah, yeah, thanks to Shin Godzilla, since they basically fully established that if a citizen is harmed by the actions of the Japanese self-defense force, then then that's problematic for the self-defense force. But then again, this is technically, I guess if you want to be technical, this is the Crisis Control Institute with access to military equipment. Yeah, this music right here sounds like it's the beginning of a Japanese music video. And that's clearly not part of the original score. Yeah, I got 1 minute. This is like I know this movie's not especially great. Ooh, that stare. It's like, you dare tell me what to do? But that sequence where he's running down the steps trying to get out before the explosion happens is pretty it's pretty intense. And that's I mean, this movie came out 2 years before 9/11 happened, but I definitely think watching that moment in a post 9/11 world definitely makes it a little more intense or unsettling. Nothing. Not a scratch. Okay, that's a clear Independence Day moment right there. Yes, because the elevator is much safer. His hands are burning. That is the slowest Independence Day recreation ever. Justin Toner says his hands would get shredded. Oh, absolutely. He lives. And his hands are completely intact. Razorbike says R.I.P. hands. Yeah. Oh yeah, Razorbike mentioned something else. One of the things that was going to happen originally was that there was going to be a sequel to this movie called Godzilla Reborn that was actually a co-production between Mike Schlesinger, the guy that was basically in charge of the American version of this movie, and it was going to have the effects done by Toho. Yeah, the effects were going to be done by Toho. Joe Dante was supposed to direct it, who did stuff like Piranha and Gremlins. And I think at one point Bruce Campbell was supposed to, like, what was considered to be starring in it. But Schlesinger couldn't get the funding to get the movie going, so that never happened, and we ended up getting the worst film in the Millennium series. So yeah, like, basically they just sum it up right here. The aliens want to create a new civilization for them to rule. And they want to, I guess they want to use Godzilla's DNA to, like, survive. Like, again, the aliens, the plot with the aliens is so, like, it's so hollow. And now Godzilla's back. And there's Ifukube's theme. Like, hearing this theme in the theater for the first time was just such a joy. Razorbike said, "Imagine Sam Raimi doing a Godzilla movie." I'm going to imagine Sam Raimi doing a Godzilla movie in the 80s. And in my mind, it's awesome. And now the rest of the movie, like, you do not even need to care about the plot at all, huh? Because the rest of the movie here, the last... How long is that? That's about 25 minutes. Yeah, the last 25 minutes of this movie, all the human characters are just standing on a roof as they watch the monster action. Like, there's really no need to, like, pay attention to the plot from this point on. Yeah, that shot of Godzilla crossing the crossing the train tracks doesn't hold up. Cute. Godzilla's crossing through a green light. Who's dissing Drag Me to Hell? Huh? Drag Me to Hell is great. Huh? During this whole sequence where Godzilla's walking towards the UFO, there are some shots that go on for a little too long and are entirely unnecessary. So again, for pacing issues, they cut some of those shots. Like, lightly, he went up into the air and then just lightly tapped a building. And again, like, the trope of oh no, Razorback, I'm not dissing modern day Sam Raimi, except for Oz the Great and Powerful. It's just yeah, I have no problem with Sam Raimi at all. I guess it's just I'm not in love with his Spider-Man movies the way everyone is. Like, I mean, I love the first Spider-Man movie, but it's definitely got a lot of corny moments to it. Like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, the first one at least, is probably on the level of goofiness that this movie is, to an extent. Spider-Man 2 is good, but I do not think it's the best Spider-Man movie made. And I'm just, like, Spider-Man 2 just has a lot of problems. And then Spider-Man 3, it's bad, but it's not god-awful. But, we're not talking about Spider-Man. We're talking about Godzilla. Yeah, the human characters are just, like, occasionally they'll just cut to the human characters for reaction shots. Yeah, that shot of Godzilla tail whipping the UFO into the ground, like, it's like the perspective's all wrong. So it's just not a very good shot. And is it just me, or does the UFO size keep changing whenever it's near Godzilla? And once again, getting back to, like, this movie not knowing what to do with its main characters, so they just put them on a roof. This is directed by Takao Okawara, who did Godzilla vs. Mothra, Mechagodzilla 2, and Destroya. And especially with Godzilla vs. Mothra, that movie didn't know what to do with its human characters, so it just put them on a roof. Yeah, if that were Zilla, the building collapsing on him would have killed him instantly. It does kind of bug me that they'll use some of Zilla's roar, but whenever they use oh, sorry. Whenever they use Zilla's roars that sound like Godzilla, it doesn't really bother me that much. But I get what you mean, Razorbike, because I had those I had some of those reservations whenever I'd watch this movie. Okay, so probably mentioned, yeah, Regenerator G1 is what they call Godzilla's reproductive cells. No, not reproductive. That's entirely wrong, because that would mean Godzilla reproduces. Regenerative cells, hence Regenerator G1. But in the Japanese version, it's called Organizer G1. And for those who ever wanted to know where the villain monster in this movie gets his name from, that's where. Orga basically is based off of Organizer G1. Even though they never actually call the monster Orga in this movie. That's just for marketing purposes and the fact that Toho has to name all their monsters. Okay, now this weird thing here. I'd always thought, like, the UFO grew a face and legs. Or when I first saw this movie, I thought the UFO, like, because it's kind of shaped like, the head's kind of shaped like the UFO with that terrible 1999 CGI in Japan. And I thought, like, the UFO turned into that, and then this shot happens. Huh, one blast to the atomic breath, and without all that rock protecting it, and the UFO pretty much got demolished. That was easy. That's a funny shot, how it looks like this giant fireball's coming towards the characters, and then it just ends up being a tiny one. There's Orga. So I don't understand, like, this is a new composition of the Godzilla theme. I don't understand why they use the Godzilla theme to introduce Orga. I guess because it's another monster created through Godzilla cells. But even then, like, it's not, I don't know. Doesn't Orga seem like a jab at Zilla also with that head? Because there's something about Zilla's head. There's something about Orga's head and the way its teeth are kind of like Orga doesn't have any gums like Godzilla does, and neither does Zilla. So I imagine the head looks kind of similar to Zilla's head. That's not me dissing on Orga. Like, again, every decision that this movie has made is to respond to, like, is a giant middle finger to Roland Emmerich's Godzilla. So I would not be surprised if whoever designed Orga, at least in terms of the head, decided to make it look like Zilla. Yeah, that's a terrible shot that doesn't hold up. The one problem I do have with Orga in this movie is that I wish the hands were more animated. What I mean by that is, like, the hands are always constantly like this, in the same pose. And maybe having animatronics in the hands to make the fingers move would have been too heavy for the suit actor. But I feel like there could have been, a little more could have been done to make Orga look a little more animated. There goes the UFO. There goes the UFO, and we now know Orga can not only be damaged easily, but he heals pretty quickly, so I guess that works out in the end. And that's not Orga's roar in the Japanese version. The Japanese version, Orga sounded well, I mean, if anyone out there has played the if you played the a lot of Godzilla video games, like the Atari games from Pipeworks, Orga's, a lot of Orga's sounds in that movie, okay, maybe not all of them, but there's some, whenever Orga gets really damaged, that's what he sounds like. But Rebirth of Mothra 3 had another version of Ghidorah in that movie, Cretaceous Ghidorah. Orga's roars sound like Orga's roars, and the roars of the Cretaceous Ghidorah are the same. And funny enough, the Cretaceous Ghidorah is played by Tsutomu Kitagawa, who plays Godzilla in this movie. Then that line of it's trying to be a Godzilla clone. Like, you can't tell me that's not a jab at Roland Emmerich's film. Yeah, a lot of the CGI, like the CGI that they put on Orga. Ooh, you could clear like that shot there. You could tell what was part of the suit and what was CG. Yeah, since Toho, since the rights to make more American Godzilla movies, expired in 2003. I don't think Toho imagined that they would actually get the rights to that creature and actually have a legit Godzilla versus Zilla fight, or I say legit, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So I think this was the closest that they could get at the time to have a monster that I guess you could say is a mockery of is Toe's way for them to make fun of Roland Emmerich's monster. Yeah, there's something about the way Orga's head looks in that shot to where you could tell something's gonna happen, and that happens. Yeah, it's like getting back to those trailers. I had forgotten when I first saw the trailers before the movie came out. I guess I blanked out the UFOs, but Orga was not featured in the trailers at all. Like, Orga did legitimately come as a surprise. Even though, if you really see the poster for Godzilla 2000, like the one I have right there, you could see, like, teeth and, like, smiling teeth and eyes behind Godzilla. So, I guess it wasn't that much. I guess, in theory, it wasn't that much of a surprise that Orga was going to be in this movie. Or at least that this movie would have a giant monster to fight Godzilla. Yeah, you like at first you think, man, Godzilla's dumb to just walk right into that giant mouth. Huh? But Godzilla knows what he's doing. He's smarter than that. That is a big explosion for all of Tokyo. And the fact that our characters survive that is that survive a nuclear explosion pretty much is the stuff of miracles. Yeah, what a terrible way to go out. Yeah, that's a headless monster right there. And completely stiff and lifeless. And once again, the characters are just watching the whole thing play out, not participating in it at all. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. Yeah, I'd haul ass too. Yeah, I didn't. I'd never once acknowledged Katagiri's trench coat. Like this entire movie, I think the trench coat just adds to his level of coolness. Godzilla is just kind of looking straight forward and is not really looking down at Katagiri. Like, what was Katagiri's end goal here? Did he want to get killed by Godzilla? Like, I'm not quite sure what. And there's a shot for the trailer. And there he goes. Amazing that the rest of the building didn't crumble. So that the other characters could be safe. And then Godzilla just decides to leave those people alone. Oh, the closing line of this movie is I'm going to assume that I mean, I've seen the Japanese version, and the Japanese version, at least according to the subtitles on the Blu-ray, is pretty accurate to what the ending line in the American version is, but just listen to this line here. Phrasing. But that like, yeah, that ending doesn't. This ending kind of confuses me. I mean, for one, in the American version, why is Rodan's theme playing? Like, Rodan doesn't show up in this movie at all. But also, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like that line, it would have worked if it would have been fun. Over at oneofus.net when the Blu-ray came out in 2014, Chris Cox and Matt Frank talked about that line, And Chris Cox said that would have that line could have worked if another character looked at Shinoda and said, "What are you talking about?" Like that would have saved that line from being any more goofy than it was. There's an actor in this movie that's named Dangerous. Yeah, Kenji Suzuki is the director of special effects this time around. And he would do the special effects for the next movie, which pretty much was the last Godzilla movie he'd do, because the special effects in that movie are just... Ooh, I mean, we'll get to that movie Thursday, but yeah, this was Godzilla 2000. It definitely... Again, I keep saying this over and over, but it is definitely a middle-of-the-road Godzilla movie. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's not, amazing at all. And I think the only reason that this movie got the love that it did when it came out was just because it was made as a response to Roland Emmerich's movie. And for Godzilla fans, it's hey, we love this. But I think it's it is a Godzilla movie that is just kind of middle of the road. Not great, but not terrible either. Not even bad. It's the most serviceable Godzilla movie I could think of. So yeah, Thursday, we are going to be moving on to what is the worst Godzilla movie in the Millennium series, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. And this is the point where I'm going to go back to, the Japanese, watching the movies in Japanese. Well, plus all the Godzilla movies from here on out, you could choose to watch them in Japanese or in English dubbed over, because there are no real cuts to the movie, but for me it's just more authentic to watch the Japanese version. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. For those of you who are watching this watch along in post, I encourage you to watch these live and interact with everyone in the chat. If y'all love what I'm doing with the channel and want to help support financially, like I've said several times before, you can go over to patreon.com/TheRealMrRobinson. For $1 a month, you can help support the channel financially. And when I get to 25 patrons, I will start doing live watch-alongs exclusively for you guys. Because during the quarantine, not only am I doing Godzilla and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm going to just, like I said in a video a couple days ago, I'm going to also do Star Wars and Harry Potter. But after that, any other watch-along that I do is exclusive to Patreon. Oh yeah, John Cho is listed in the credits as other characters. Huh. Never noticed that before. That's cool, though. So yeah, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus will be this Thursday. Take care. And until then, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.